And we are live. Welcome to another forum by Speak Up Africa. Today we will be discussing the proliferation of guns in East Africa and its impacts on bandits. Now, in the recent years, the region has experienced an alarming increase in the number of firearms circulating among criminal groups and other actors. So we want to talk about bandits in East Africa. We want to talk about the issues of bandits that have been going around in about 6 counties in Kenya, and by extension even to Uganda and Tanzania. These bandits have been engaging in robbery, kidnapping, cattle thefts, and even murder. We have seen our police officers, we have seen our forces getting murdered by these bandits. And these groups often operate with impunity, and they take advantage of weak governance structures and lack of law enforcement capacity. So that is what we're trying to break down. And to see through this conversation, I am hosting, I was supposed to host 3, but for now I am hosting 2 very wonderful learned people. I am hosting General Mohammed Brig. He's going to introduce himself and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself. General, tuambie.
Thank you very much, Wangeshi, and thank you for having me. Happy to be on the forum. My name is Brigadier General Retired Mohammed. I used to work for the Kenya Armed Forces, did that for 38 years. Took my retirement about 4 years ago. I'm now a consultant in peace and security, both in the region and in Africa.
Nice. See, this is the best person to have this conversation and to tell us and to help us break down the conversation behind banditry and the proliferation of guns in East Africa. And to you, Darren Namatovu from Uganda, introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Wanjishi. My name is Darren. My name is Darren Namatov. I am a human rights and child rights, mostly a defender in Uganda. I am also a social work. I do a lot of social work, and I've been a peace ambassador, the Commonwealth Peace Ambassadors platform for 2 years, and my term ended last year. I'm so happy to be part of this conversation, and thank you so much for having me.
Okay, wonderful. So the 2 of these people are going to help us answer the question of why is there banditry in East Africa? Why is there banditry in Kenya? What do they think is the reason behind banditry? And then we're going to look at it from the point of the youth. How does it affect the youth? Are the youths the bandits? And how can the youths help mitigate banditry in East Africa? That is why we have one person who is a human rights activist and another person who deals with security. And in absence, Sandra Ruhizi was to join us and she was to talk about the socio-economic impacts of banditry. But as for now, until she joins us, we are going to continue. So the first question I want to give is to General Mohammed. I want to ask you, why banditry? Why do these bandits attack? What is the cause of the war? What is the main reason as why we have all of these banditries in Kenya, in Turkana, in Samburu County, in Baringo County, in all of the 6 counties in Kenya, and by extension in Uganda and Tanzania? Why is there banditry in East Africa? Let us know your views, General Mohammed.
Thank you very much, Wangeshi. I want to start by saying that the issues and challenges we are facing goes back into history, in the sense that all the communities you mentioned and the areas mentioned actually where the way of living all along has been based on livestock, and they all were, even in those olden days, keeping livestock as the main lifestyle. And your status in society was determined by how many animals you had, either cows or goats, or camels or sheep. And in the same token also, because of that also, how many wives you'll have, because your riches is determined on how many animals you have. And what you have seen is that over time, that was actually in history, but those days you found that communities were very close to each other. They were pastoralists, they were moving around, they were able to talk to each other, accept common grazing areas, and live in peace. However, even then, there was this thing called cattle rustling, where you find that being a way of life, when the animal stocks go down, any community will invade any other community. Unfortunately, also for the youth, it was tied down into the customary systems where to show that you are now mature, you require to go and raid and bring herds back. And then either you can marry or be able to on profit in terms of livestock. Now we thought that that is actually in the pre-colonial days, and we thought with independence that will come to an end. Unfortunately, in those areas, due to underdevelopment, due to marginalization, whether in Kenya, Uganda, or in Tanzania, the style of living remained the same, and they still remain pastoralists living in livestock as a means of living. And out of that, what we see now is that has moved from cattle rustling into banditry, where individuals will get armed, go on the streets, uh, go on the roads, mostly in what we call non-governance spaces, where there's no government presence, and use that to either harass people, kill, even including money and all that, and also conduct cattle raids. And it was even made worse by the fact that at the time, those days, we used to believe in the raids being done through either bows, arrows, and spears. Now we have a new phenomenon, the phenomenon of the gun. It has changed the whole game. This is something we can discuss a bit later as we go along, Wangeshi.
Oh, okay, okay. I listened to you break it down, and I was listening to you talk about wives. Just for a minute or two, could you just tell us how banditry is related to the number of wives? Is it a matter of power and prowess? Is it so you can have a stand in community? Is it something like that?
Now, Wangeshi, we're talking about the traditional African societies, where we had kings and kingdoms and all that. And your status in society is determined by how rich you are. How rich you are is determined by how many animals you have in your yard. And by virtue of that, therefore, your status in society. And therefore, when you are rich, you have big herds, you're able to marry with more wives. And it was indeed the thing then that even the kings and the leaders and the rich ones were able to marry more wives, as even accepted to marry them in those days.
Well, that's quite interesting. But this goes back then when they used to do raids because of all of these things that you've mentioned. When your cattle's were lesser, you would raid another community for cattle and things like that. And while all of these attributes are still there, there's something you mentioned that changed: guns. The question that we are asking today is, where do we think these criminal groups, these militia groups, these bandits get the guns from? As a person who is a consultant in peace and security, I bet you're the best person to answer the question of where do we think these guns are coming from? Because I know they are not legal, they are illegal. Where do these guns come from?
Wangeshi, before I answer that, I want to go back a bit, if you allow me, and talk about
Yes.
youth those days and how they'll grow into being members of society. It was a requirement in most of the pastoral communities that for you to get married, you must show your prowess at war. At war, in this sense, was you being able to go and conduct a raid and bring very many animals back. Now, when you came back with those large animals, number one, you were recognized in society. Number two, you'll get the best lady out there as a wife. Without that, you have no place. If you're not taking part in that trade or done nothing, my friend, you walk with your head low. You have no voice in society. Actually, you are nobody until you stand up. Now, in the Maasai, there was even something more. That as a young man who wants to go and get married now, who is being groomed, you must go and bring the head of a lion. The head of a lion. Stand out, go there and do it. In time, of course, lions have reduced now. It's not the way to go, but the one of the raid is still important for you to get your place in society. Now, I'll get to your second question about the arms. Now, as I said before, in the pre-independence days, in the traditional days, the weapon of choice was the spear, the bow, and the arrow. After independence, of course, with the coming of the colonial powers, they came in with the guns. Initially, it wasn't a big problem. In fact, most African traditional societies were challenging the colonial powers using the same old weapons, the bow, the arrow, and the spear. And in fact, up to about just before independence, the issue of the weapons had not been an issue. Of course, we know that people like the Mau Mau were able to make their own crude weapons, their own crude guns, which they used now to challenge the colonial powers. After independence, more countries in Africa became independent, mostly in this African region. We recruited our own armies, our own police, and all that. And we had now weapons around in our armories and all that. What has changed is that there were two aspects that came in. One was where most of the societies started acquiring arms. At the same time, there was also the issue of poachers who also came in and got arms to kill animals for that trade. Now, over time then, we find that there are weapons in the area. Again, the other main reason for these weapons was that there were a number of societies around the region who were either in conflict or not happy with their governments. So you find that anybody who had a problem would therefore go out and look for arms. Like in Kenya, we had no problem with the government. We were doing very well. We had no issues at all. However, the pastoral communities found that with the modern weapons, they're able to get more animals, to conduct more raids from a long distance and with ease. And therefore, when the first weapons came in to be used in terms of banditry, what happened was that other communities who were attacked also in the same way. They also got their weapons to defend themselves and also to conduct counter raids. In saying this, I want to mention that in the old traditional days, these raids were normal. And they were almost like accepted that you steal from me, I'll come and steal from you. What I will call negative reciprocity, whereby you steal from me today, I'll stay for about 2 months and come back and steal from you. And this was a continuous process, what I call negative reciprocity. However, in time, it went out of hand and it went commercial, that even more weapons came in now for us to be able to conduct more raids with a view to not keeping them, but selling them on the markets in the big cities. Now, where are the arms coming from? This area had been an area of peace for a long time. However, we found that conflict came into the region. We have the case of Somalia. We have the case of Ethiopia over a number of years, which has seen conflict. The issue of South Sudan, the issue of Uganda for quite a while before Museveni came in also was an issue. And therefore, there were a lot of arms, illegal arms that came into the region. And all the communities who require these arms now were able to go to those areas and acquire illegal arms, to a point where the number of illegal arms out there were almost 100 times more than the official legal arms held by the Kenya Armed Forces and the Kenya Police, both also in Uganda and in Tanzania. Efforts to try and bring down the number of arms, efforts to try and control became quite difficult. Again, as I said, the fact that it became commercial. People are now going to conduct raids, put the animals on lorries, bring them to Nairobi, Mombasa, and anywhere, made it very, very, very complicated. In addition, also the fact that with independence and our numbers, most of the areas were now actually having boundaries which were not very much done carefully. So almost all the communities challenge the current existing boundaries. For most of them, their grazing areas were reduced, drastically reduced, with farmers coming in to try and take up farming. And therefore, what you call the traditional pastoralists had very squeezed areas, very few grazing areas, more animals, and therefore out of that, one, they armed themselves, and number two, they went to seek grazing by the use of force. And then thirdly, eventually now, the issue of commercialization, where now this was taken as a point to get rich, to get dollars now, not the traditional way of keeping animals as we used to do. Back to you, Gangesh. Back to you, Gangesh.
Feeling like they were not part of everything brings the question of is this by extension the government's fault? Because the government is for the people, democracy is for the people. Did they feel like they were pushed away from their lands and felt like they had to retaliate? Did they feel like this was them reacting to what the government and the people of the government had done to them? Do you think by extension that what the government did to pastoralist communities is part of the reason for banditry today? Before we go to Darren.
Wangashi, what I said earlier was that, number one, the issue of boundaries, which were disputed. Almost all the communities disputed the boundaries because they felt that part of the grazing areas had gone elsewhere. Number two is the issue of marginalization, lack of development, lack of other options for jobs, lack of schools for the youth,
Okay.
and their options of going to school. So all this somehow affected. And therefore, what they found was that one, trying to survive in the old systems, at the same time, trying to fit in the new and modern times. But they were left behind. There were no very good schools. There was no pressure to push all the young boys, all the young girls to go to school. And therefore, most of them remained back in the villages. And not in the villages, they were left behind to go and take care of the animals. Now, staying back in the village, you have no education. The animals have gone down because of drought and things like that. What do? You must seek them wherever they are. And therefore, you are armed to go and raid other communities. And therefore, out of that, this became a normal practice. What we see in other societies is that where there were schools that were built, the children, both boys and girls, were able to go to school. They were educated. They went on to university. They were able to get jobs. And those ones could not be incited to go back and to conduct banditry or cattle rustling. The ones who were back in the village, who had not gone to school, whom their parents had blocked them from going to school because they're supposed to take care of animals, remained in the villages, no source of income, and therefore they actually continued with this idea of conducting raids, conducting cattle rustling, keeping large herds as a way of life. So a number of issues actually came in to lead to both in terms of the way of life of the community, not going to school, the smaller now grazing lands, the issue of marginalization, and one more thing came up also, where the element of natural resources, the element of oil, the element of geothermal, all those again were areas which were disputed in terms of boundaries. And therefore, all that again caused problems whereby certain communities went out to fight to ensure that those rich areas, those mining areas, those geothermal areas actually fall in their boundaries, in their areas, although technically they were actually areas by other communities. I'll stop there, Angeshi.
Oh, okay. I want to bring Darren Namatobo to the stream. I want to thank you, General. That was very detailed, the breakdown of where we think these bandits, why they did the banditry and where these guns are coming from. Now, Darren, I want to ask you, what do you think is the effects of banditry to the youth? And the question comes in two ways. It comes in one, are the youths the bandits? And if they are, how is it affecting them? And then how do we mitigate this? Darren?
Thank you very much, Wangeshi. Uh, I think I could say to answer your first question is if the youth are the bandits. I partly agree with the fact that you really youth could be the bandits. That is a very subjective opinion in my opinion, because one, we've seen time and time the rebels and all these other countries really use young people for anything that they really want. So I believe youth at some point are really the bandits because they are the biggest target groups, and we see in the ESC in the region, youth take up at least 60%. So we imagine, or I imagine, youth could be the bandits, and how is it affecting them? One, why do even youth have to be the bandits in the first place? One, we are seeing the financial instability, the lack of work to do by young people. They need job, they need a way to survive in their everyday lives. So what makes them bandits is they have no option, they have no hope for life. Sometimes they're really forced, they do not really want to do this, or maybe they even lack information on how and why they have to do whatever they are doing. Why do they have to turn themselves into bandits? The daily livelihoods of our region, in Uganda to be specific, in Kenya, in Tanzania, these regions are all as one. The financial instabilities, the lack of good education for young people to really know that why, as a youth, do I have to hold a gun? Why do I have to go and purchase a firearm? Yes, a weapon to fight. So the best reason is one is we do not have knowledge. Young people do not have knowledge. The youth do not know what to do with their lives, and maybe they see options that are far more easy for them to actually cope with life, and that turns them into bandits. Another thing is there's a lot of manipulation. There's a lot of I could call it greenwashing. Yeah, there's a lot of manipulation and using of young people at their lowest. Yeah, imagine a young person in Kenya, in Uganda. I've finished education. I do not know what my next life is going to look like. But then I have a family, or maybe I have land, or maybe cattle deep in the village, and maybe I think I could use that. And in using it, I do not know there's someone who actually needs it more than me. And in stuff like that, war begins. We begin to fight. You're not taking my cattle. This is my stuff. This is, So there are very many reasons why young people really are looked at as bandits in this time, because they are at the center of everything that is happening. They are at the center of any war, even in the hardest time, even in the hardest political instabilities. We're seeing young people at the center of these issues. So, what can we do? What can we do? I think the best one thing is to do is to really put up strong campaigns to actually, one, give young people civic education, give young people education they need to know that if you go into war, if you start into dealing with holding illegal arms, illegal weapons, what is going to happen to you? It's your family, it's your life that you're putting in jeopardy. And then the other thing is training young people on how to actually handle war when it really happens, because most of them go and purchase weapons, go and uh, deal into this kind of work, but they do not even know how to shoot. They do not know how to even use a gun properly. So how about to train young people on how to meet to handle a weapon, to handle a gun when those times come. And then the other thing is having young people venture into businesses to actually balance up at the daily livelihood, so that they do not scamper to manipulation. Someone coming to you and telling you they're giving you $100 and they want you to do this, but because you desperately need the money, you're actually just going to be like, oh, I think I could use this and I can do whatever you tell me to do. But $100 is going to cost you your life. It's going to cost you your future. It's going to cost you a lot. So it's a matter of really having young people having something to do for their life that is very constructive, that is very transformative, that is not going to cause harm to either the region they live in, the countries they live in, but also themselves. And then the other thing is involving young people in leadership. Very many times I feel like young people youth are not really given a platform and do not even know how to even handle such situations when they come. When young people are involved, are put into leadership, I know they can make better decisions about what kind of peace they want to see in their regions, what kind of governments they want. Very many times young youth are into this kind of work because they do not, maybe they feel like there's a government they want to fight and they think they can do it on their own. But you cannot fight government when it's the now, like for let's say for Uganda, you cannot wake up and say I'm fighting government. Most of these young people have actually were not even born before this government has been in existence. So how do you wake up and say I'm fighting government and this is the kind of group that I'm forming and we are we are rebelling against the government of Uganda or government of Kenya. So it's just a matter of young people knowing what to do. And also the other thing is putting up strong punishments. Like let these rebels, let these cartels really be held accountable as they need to be held. Because I feel like we have weak, strong justice systems that most times the rebels get away with it. They get away with it, and at the end of the day we are seeing them again coming back stronger than before, and they want to attack even more better. So how about we have strong justice systems that hold these people accountable, so that a young person, a youth out there that wants to try and maybe start up any kind of drama again, they do not want to do it because they have no one that is going to back them up and they're going to be dealt with legally.
I loved the breakdown. I loved it, particularly when you talked about can the youth fight the government? Can we fight the government? Now, I want to bring Mohammed. I see him laughing in the background. And I want to really ask, can the youth fight the government? And I want to ask it in this way. Assumably, if most of the bandits are youth, they're young people, they're people who have energy, they're part of Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, forming majority of the population. If the means of fighting the government is through banditry, what is the government doing about it? And to ask this question in a better way, I'll ask it the way Rachel has asked. Rachel is joining us live on YouTube, and she's asking, so having the illegal arms is a sign of power for the pastoralist for defense. Has the government done anything to do something different for these people? And I'm going to give both of you an opportunity to answer, but because Darren, you were just answering right now, let me give General Mohammed an opportunity to answer. Do you think the government is doing something different for these people, in general, the bandits, and particularly the youths who are part of these militia groups, who are part of these bandit groups?
Wangeshi, first allow me to thank Darren for a wonderful presentation. Well done, Darren. Very well put forward. Very key things have come out, and I appreciate that. Well done. I hope the youth is able to take this lesson and be able to apply them. Now, in answer, I want to say one thing first. It is wrong to hold an illegal weapon, either in Kenya, in Uganda, or Tanzania. And wherever you are with a weapon, whether you are young or old, the government will take action on you. So you can't afford to hold an illegal weapon. Now, in saying that, it's going to go that way. The recommendation is please join the National Police, please join the armed forces, where you'll be trained and use that weapon in a very professional and very legal way. Remember also the fact that, and Danny put it very well, that currently the old practices of conducting banditry has changed. And in fact, you'll find that, unfortunately, again, the issue of manipulation, the youth are manipulated by the seniors to go and engage in these activities. It's time they stand up and say no to that. Stand up and say no. If anything,
Yes.
pressure them, take you to school, pressure them to get you opportunities, pressure them to get you jobs and skills that will allow you to earn a living. in a very acceptable and professional way. Now, can you face the government with those arms? One thing is true, is very clear, as was put forward by yes, when you carry the illegal weapon in the village, you're very powerful. You're very, very powerful. But that's in front of the villagers. When the government comes in, you are very weak, my friend. You are very, very weak. In fact, once they challenge the police, when it gets to a higher level, we bring in the armed forces. There's no bandit group in this country, in the Eastern African region, that can directly take on the armed forces, even to include the Shabab in Somalia. They can't take on the armed forces physically. And therefore, that becomes a problem. How do we address this? I want to assure you, Angeshi and all, the government is doing all that it can to try and change the way of business, trying to change the way of the future of the youth. One of those they're doing, for instance, in Kenya, is through the county governments. The county governments are actually the same people leading their own people. They understand the problems of the county. They understand the issues. They know who is who. And through that, they're able to find better opportunities for the youth in what to do. They're able to make better development in terms of schools, in terms of roads, in terms of establishing villages, in terms of establishing water points. So that whatever you have in terms of your animals, they are few, but you're able to take better care of them. And I'll say again very strongly that where the youth have problems and they feel that they've been marginalized, the best thing to do is to work through your elected local leaders. For instance, for Kenya, the governor, the senator, the member of parliament, women representative, the MCS, all coming from your area. Use them to air your views, express your concerns, and get it officially to the government. So the government can come and assist you. The idea of banditry, the idea of harassment is an old tradition. The world has no room for that. This is why this, and I beg you clearly, please come out. In doing that, avoid being manipulated, being manipulated by anybody, and stand up for what you believe is right and truth, and which are the virtues we wish to see in our youth. But come in, find your place, and try to help build this country in a very professional, accepted way. Back to you, Angeshi.
Okay, I definitely love the breakdown that General Mohammed Brick has given us. But I have a question. I was listening to George Natembeya the other day, the former regional commissioner, and he was saying that the biggest challenge when it comes to fighting banditry in Kenya, at least, is the centralization of the resources that are supposed to be given to these police. And other issues have also come up. Mohammed, I want you to answer this question, that's why I still have you on stream. Other issues have come up with the police said to have exchanged bullets for food because the food gets to them rotten. And in an interview, Judge Natembeya told Monday Live, Citizen TV, that the people that are in the camps are not, what's the word? They're not experienced enough. The other day, Nation published a news on a gentleman called Brian, who was very young, deployed for his first time and died in service. Is this a police issue? Is this a country issue? Is this an issue that actually happens? And do you think there's something that the government of Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania can do to enhance the police service, to enhance our security services, to ensure that we deal with banditry?
Thank you very much, Wangesh. Let me say again that all through, bandits cannot face the police today. Bandits equally cannot face the Kenya Defense Forces. The weapons they have are not strong enough. They don't have the numbers. They are not well trained, and they cannot really face a professional force, whether it comes from the police or the military. In saying this, let's understand that we have different functions for different security forces. We know very well that the Kenya police or the police in all our regions have responsibility for internal security. So that where there are issues of banditry, issues of raids, issue of bank robberies in Nairobi and all that, those remain a function of the Kenya police. The military forces in all the three countries are designed to address issues of external threat to sovereignty of the state. But where the local forces fail to match the standards or don't meet expectations, then the armed forces or the military is called in to assist but not take the lead in that particular situation. Like, for instance, what you see in North Rift now. The military has been called in, not in the lead. They have come in to support the police who are in the lead, so that where there are areas that are complicated or jungle terrain or difficult terrain, they have resources to include ground forces and air support forces to address any threat whatsoever. Now, issues of the past that have been there, where we hear about the police trading arms for food, trading arms for money, and all that, trading for services. That was an act of the past. In fact, the forces we have today in theater, in North Rift, are so special that no organized bandit team can stand in their way. It's not the regular police you see on the roads in terms of traffic police and all that. These are if they're police, they are well-organized police forces. These are the GSU, who are special. These are the anti-structive unit. These are the rapid deployment units, specifically trained as a team to take on this threat. And on their own, they are able to address any banditry problem. They have come in now in North Rift, and they're there. They were not there before to do this turnaround. In addition to that, they have a very professional Kenya Defense Forces. Well armed, as I said, both for ground operations and air operations, and no force can stand in their way. So with the GSU, with what you call the rapid deployment units, with the defense forces, there's no compromise from the public. There can't be compromise. They are very professional, they do it right, and they will deliver the fire. If you are youth or the first, please don't stand in their way. Don't match them. Go back and seek a better way of life than conducting banditry and cattle raids. Back to you, Angeshi.
Okay. Now I want to bring Darren Namatobu back on stream. And the question I want to ask as we come to a close, and thank you everyone that has joined us for this conversation. Again, I'm hosting General Ahmed Mohamed Brick. I hope that is the right pronunciation. And I'm also hosting Darren Namatov from Uganda. So Darren, I want to ask you this question. Do you think the governments of Uganda and Kenya and Tanzania are taking the necessary measures from a human rights activist to deal with banditry? Now that we've gotten the information from the peace and security consultant and specialist, let's get it from the human rights activist. Do you think these governments are doing the most? They're doing everything that they can do to deal with banditry?
Thank you very much, Wanjeshi, for that question. I'd like to first thank Mr. Muhammad for that great presentation. I think I like his last remarks when he said young people can have better options than actually being bandits. I think that is really a strong one. But to answer your question, I am a human rights activist, and I've seen a lot of tweets on really human rights, especially in Uganda, but I would not really say only Uganda, because East Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, we are all really like one country. So how is this being a threat a lot on human rights? We've seen a lot of insecurities, a lot of brutal arrests, a lot of torturing of youth human rights activists, and we ask ourselves very many questions. Why maybe the government is not coming out to protect citizens? Why the governments are laboring against maybe human rights activists that are actually just speaking out on the issues that are affecting people, but not only themselves as young people, even the government itself, it's really a big target for bandits. And what can they do? What are they doing best? I feel like the government is the governments are trying. I could just say they're really trying their best to maybe put up strong security mechanisms and maybe deploying a lot of military on maybe on the cross borders. And we've seen the government of Uganda has been trying a lot. The UPDF has been helping with fighting the rebels in DRC. So we believe that is a one commendable action, actually trying to protect people not only in your country but also knowing that your neighbor could use your help at any time. But also the other thing is the very many threats, like I said, that we do the very many threats. One is there's literally less lack of less I don't know the best way to put it, but there's not such thing as freedom of speech. There's no such thing of maybe education on how a young person needs to know of how to use a gun, because these are things the government is supposed to be providing to young people. We need strong youth leaders in government, but we do not have them, and we believe that is a threat on human rights because young people need to be represented on every platform, but we have literally minimum of young people in maybe government that are really speaking out on these issues, and someone coming out boldly and calling out maybe any government that is not delivering well. And then the other thing is we have a lot of insecurities on food insecurity. That a right to food is a human right, and if people are not having a rights to food, and there's a lot of insecurities, and maybe rebels and bandits are coming on to gang and maybe try to steal their food, we believe the governments are not performing because hunger is pushing people to do whatever they do. So if you scoop this right away from people, we are believing you're not performing. But also I do not want to dwell a lot on what the governments are not doing. What is our role as young people? How are we even helping the governments deliver their work? Are we writing petitions to them? Are we helping them execute maybe their policies? Are they even giving us those platforms? Because these policies are to disarm and stop war and maybe put an end to SARS are there, but are they implemented? Do young people have the knowledge? Do young people have information knowing to know that oh these are human rights and this is the a policy that our governments are putting up, but they are not implementing it? How are we helping them, or how are we holding them accountable so that our lives are not in danger? I speak from a human rights perspective because my life has been threatened at some point because you wake up and maybe you want you choose to speak up against something, and your life suddenly is in danger. But by what happens? What do governments gain from looking at young people as threats? We believe we do not want to be looked at as threats. We want to work with governments. I tell myself and all youth leaders that we want to work with government. We do not want to work to just hold you accountable for what you're not doing right, but we want to work with you. We want you to put up strong licenses against these guns, these firearms. If anyone is found with it, deal with them. Why are these guns sold? For instance, why are they even sold? Because right now you can walk into a shop. There are some shops you can walk into and actually purchase a firearm. That is a threat on human rights. How are governments really actually mitigating that? Where are the bandits getting them? These are young people that do not have information, but they know they can go on Google after purchasing this weapon and just click on how to use it, and they already have it. And this is me going to be working on a street, maybe in my farm, doing my farm work, and I do not know what is happening. This is a bandit coming to me. What are the governments doing to actually put erase away all these weapons so that young people do not access them? So there's a lot of work that our governments need to do. There's a lot of work that the ESA need to do in terms of peace stability, in terms of really giving information to young people and ensuring that human rights are kept intact, and also citizens remain safe and not looking at young people as threats. Because at the end of the day, we are not being threats, or not anyone is actually wanting to be a threat. We need to wake up and fight our governments. These bandits themselves, if you could have an honest conversation with them, they do not wake up and choose to be bandits. But we believe this is not only a role of young people, of government, but also ourselves actually sit, sensitize on ourselves, have peace conversations, have negotiations, talk to ourselves, talk to people, and see better ways of how we can come out of this. Thank you, Wandechi.
I love working with human rights activists because they say it as it is. Darren Amatobu has told us if they are having these arms, take them away, okay? Take them away. She has called out the governments of East Africa. She has said they need to do better. While it is significant that they are taking actions towards ridding us of banditry, it is imperative for us to notice that there's still a huge gap. Now to the last question, and I want to bring Mohammed back to stream. And the question I want to ask both of you in 1 minute or so, tell us what can we as the youth do to assist the government and all the organizations taking part in ridding Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania of banditry do? What are the measures that the youths, Wangeshi and Darren Namatove and every other youth outside there in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, what can we do to rid ourselves of banditry? Let's start with you, Mohammed, in a minute or so as we wind up, and then we'll go to Darren.
Thank you very much, Wangisha. Thank Darren again for a wonderful presentation. I want to ask the youth that I'm happy, in fact, that most of those holding weapons are not the ones, the elite who have gone to school and college and all that. It is those who have not gone to school back in the villages. I want to ask those upcoming youth, please go to school. Please pick up professional skills. Please see what you can do in acceptable ways that you can earn your living without going through those crude ways of doing things. Please avoid weapons. They are illegal. The government will come for you, and it will not be the best way to do it. And also, once you go in there, into that practice, it becomes very hard to fit back into society. I want to ask you again that please come together and challenge your local leaders, the governor, the women rep, the senator, the MPs, the MCS, challenge them to find better options for you. I want to say again that our countries are very rich. Our countries are endowed. We have the resources. The issue has been that those resources have been spent in the wrong areas, have been spent actually in areas that don't feed the people. And you can actually use that to challenge the system. I like what Doreen said. Speak out, challenge the system, but in a very positive way. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, seek, if anything, to work with the government. Express your views in areas that we can better address your concerns and your interests. Establish groups that can do different things. We know today one big challenge is the lack of jobs, lack of opportunities. They're not there. They're not there. But you can create them. You can create them with your leaders. You're educated, you've gone to school, you know what needs to be done. Just tell us what opportunities are there. And there are so many with the current resources and in the current areas where you are. In doing that, in picking up small skills, in picking up small jobs, picking up small professions, you contribute both to society and to the country. Now, the other point also you'll play a very big role in is, please be the eyes and ears of the government. Where a friend, a colleague has got lost, he has gone into that wrong line, he has gone into banditry, or he possesses an illegal arm, please talk to him first. Talk to him, encourage him to give it in. In fact, you can take it from him. Go to the police and say, this is a weapon you have got. Don't even say who it came from, say we are giving it back in. So that we help the government in disarming society. Remember, disarmament done by force is not the way to go. Disarmament by the people in a willing way is the way to go. And if you do it, where we're using force, I can assure you that will come in and complain about human rights. We don't want that. Let's play a role in our villages. Let's play a role wherever we are. Let's give back all the illegal arms and seek better ways of earning a living. Let us also be the eye and ears of the government, of the people. By the way, let me tell you one thing. When this bandit is done in your neighbors or your own backyard, it affects your people. It affects your mother. It affects your father. It affects the youth. It affects normal business. It draws you back. Please say no to banditry. Say no and stand as a strong supporter, as a firm supporter, as indeed a person willing to help this government. And I wish you well. Thank you. Wangeshi, you're on mute, please. Wangeshi, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just noticed that my microphone was a bit off. But like I was saying, Mohammed Brig has given us very wonderful pointers. He has said, come together and challenge your local leaders. They are there for you. They were set there so that they can serve you. Come together and challenge them. Whatever the issue in community is, let them know so that they can start assisting you from there. Education is key. He has said, go to school and learn. Go to school and learn. And he has also said, be the ears and eyes of the government. In one of the interviews Judge Mutembeya was having, he said that the biggest problem is there are no witnesses to banditry. When people are caught, there is no evidence because the witnesses are not willing to speak. We cannot end banditry if you're not willing to speak. We cannot end banditry if you're not willing to take up that initiative. So thank you very much, Mohammed Brig. And now to you, Darren Namatogo, as we wind up. In 1 minute or so, let me hear, what do you think the youth can do to mitigate banditry in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania?
Thank you so much, Wangeshi. I think, like I earlier mentioned, is one, but one key point I would maybe give out as my last remarks is for young people to actually inform themselves. I think the biggest issue is young people do not want to read. We do not want to keep ourselves maybe up to the trends, up to what is happening, and maybe we do not want to, we're not involving ourselves into knowing that if I get myself into the repercussions, what are the effects to my life I'm putting a threat, or maybe even my family. Mr. actually mentioned that you're not only doing this, but we do not want to, we are not informed. You do not know what it means to hold a gun. You do not know what it means to raid someone's farm, because for you actually maybe got some gun and bought it and you learned how to use it. If the police, if maybe government is coming to you, are you even able to protect yourself? So ourselves, let's make let's when to are not when to get involved. I feel like that is a very, very important thing, that know when to actually act, know when to go and protest, know when to get involved into any kind of illegal activity, that you know when you are arrested, maybe you are caught, you're not going to save yourself, but you're going to be held accountable and dealt with. And also the other thing is for young people, I feel like they need to actually stay away from a lot of politics, because I feel like it's actually politics and dealing with crooked politicians that just want to use youth because we are naive. We actually come off as young people who want a lot of opportunities, and maybe we want to show our communities that we are strong, that we can actually do this. So we go ahead and deal with maybe politicians and actors that are going to just use us at the end of the day and dump us, and even if you're gotten, they're not even there to save you. Ask yourself these questions. Are you a young person that wants to be in that position? Is it the kind of leadership that you want to maybe have for yourself and maybe your communities? Because at the end of the day, it's It's not about what you and that you're doing. It's not about what I'm doing, but it's about one thing that we are all actually doing and it's affecting all of us. It's not about one person. What is happening in Uganda affects Kenya. What is happening in Kenya affects Tanzania. So we have to look out for ourselves. Have it at the back of your mind that whatever you do, it's not only impacting you, because this is now ESC. This is one family. Let's be on the look of whatever we do, on even the decisions that we make, the small amounts we accept to actually get into this business or this kind of work. Have peace conversations with yourselves and maybe your flocks, your fellow young people. Yourself, this is actually want to do. And instead of raiding against governments, work with them and call them out if they are not delivering as they promised. Thank you very much, Wanjeti.
Thank you very much, Darren and Namatovu. I want to bring back everybody on stream and say thank you very much, General Mohammed Brick, for joining us in this conversation. Thank you again, Darren Namatovu, for giving us your views on the matter. And they have given us very nice pointers that will be helpful to you as a youth in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania in ensuring that we deal with banditry from our own individual points of view. Don't join banditry. Work with the governments, call out on your leaders if they're not doing what you anticipate for them to do. Reach out to them if you want them to do something. Banditry is not the way. Banditry is not the way. And thank you very much one more time. This was Speak Up Africa, and today we were discussing the proliferation of guns in East Africa and its impact on bandits. So we talked about the strategies for addressing these issues and reducing the incidences of banditry, and we also dissect the role of the youth in banditry. Thank you for everyone that joined us on our live forums on Facebook, YouTube, and also Twitter. And with that, I think we can confidently call it a session, and I will see you guys next time. We are ending our broadcast on that note.
Thank you very much, and bye all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.